Great. Awesome. I actually really like that one.
In the span of 3 days, we shot an A24 film meets a movie trailer. With a budget of around $12,000, this would be the highest budgeted short film I've ever made. And it's been a dream of mine to do something like this since I started making movies when I looked like this. We shot it like a Hollywood film and also kind of like a student film. Having this budget allowed us to experiment with some interesting tools, bigger setups, and a larger crew, and even making shots like this. It also was way more stressful. Bigger camera, bigger hard drives, bigger locations, bigger lights.
Eve, thank you guys so much.
And after reviewing the behind-the-scenes footage, I thought it would be helpful to share our experience making a film that blends so many styles of filmmaking, from solo shooter to micro team to a full crew. Making Rogue Wave taught me that there's no one way of filmmaking, but every level can teach us something about storytelling.
It's wild. When you shoot a movie, within seconds, it's like a clean bedroom to a messy bedroom. So shooting in big spaces like a warehouse or a filmable location feels so much better because you're not worried about wrecking anything. We've got our craft over here, so when you set up your set, you'll want to have a space to shoot, to have all your lunch and meals and weird creepy guys. So beautiful. Jackie, our lead actress, and then we've got Beth doing hair, makeup, wardrobe, production design, and a million things like usual.
You basically, when you make a film, you want a couple like key players.
Great, cut. Awesome. Oh, so you're holding that one?
Oh, yeah.
You okay?
Production designer, someone to make the space look cool. And if you can find someone like a Beth, go and work with them as much as you can. They're going to go into the space and go, okay, this wall looks blank and boring, but if we throw some newspapers on it, it's going to look awesome. We're going to need a big machine. I'm going to build you one for the cheapest price possible because we can source a lot of these materials from the garbage. Regardless of what it is, your production designer is just as important as your cinematographer on a project because they're the ones to make it a movie. The next key player I would highly recommend is a gaffer with your cinematographer. Now, some cinematographers will be exclusive with a certain gaffer, but this was definitely the big role that I realized is doing so much in the background.
I rig the lights, point the lights, move stuff around, all the fun stuff.
The job that does everything, but you never see it happening. It's just always done. We've got this amazing big warehouse, Evil Empire Studios in Hamilton set us up, and we're gonna be doing a lot of our principal photography in here. When you make a film, you wanna try, if it's a short film, you have a short period of time, try and isolate all of the scenes into one space that has diverse coverage that you can capture, meaning you don't want to be like in this location, this location, this location. If you can house it all in the same space, same area, so we're shooting in Hamilton, Ontario, keeps it a little bit more condensed. We've got a great segue tutorial happening. This is Cinematography 101.
Before the segue, no one ever moved the camera. It just sat on a tripod and everyone was like, this shot sucks. I wish the camera could go from here to here. And they're like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Influencers also didn't move around until One Wheels came. That's how we could migrate. That was a good segue.
Now, we shot this film entirely on the Desio anamorphic lenses with the substitute of about 2 or 3 shots. And these anamorphic lenses completely shaped our entire film. Now, Desio was the primary sponsor of our film, but they also didn't sway how we shot it. They just made us want to shoot more and more using them. We had the blue streak flare look and the sort of clean flare, white natural look. And depending on the scene or setup, we would swap between those. Our primary focal lengths were that of a 28mm, 32mm, 40mm, 65mm, 135mm, and at the end, a 180mm.
Widest anamorphic lens we have here today on set is a 28mm. Now, some of you in the spherical world would be like, 28's not that wide. But because of the 2x D squeeze, it's actually closer to probably like a 14 or 18mm equivalent on a Super 35 sensor. The 28 is probably closer to a 16mm field of view on spherical. So it's kind of deceptive from the left to right. Now, you are losing the top and bottom, and that's just optically what you're kind of after. So the beauty about anamorphic is we now have the compression of a 28mm with the field of view of a 16. So a lot of times people will be like, oh, I want to put a 50 on, but I hate that I'm losing all this great art deck. and all the set design. Like, I can't see the space anymore. But 50 mil anamorphic is actually more of equivalent to like a 28 mil field of view. So you still get to see your world with that separation of your subject from the background. That, and because your optics on an anamorphic are oval and not spherical, all the background almost feels like it's falling off like a melting painting.
Cool.
And that's one of the big differences between just putting crop bars on your spherical. It's like it has a new way of rendering an image that our human eye just can't. We don't see the world this way.
We shot on Nixx Alexa 35 with some shots on my FX3, but the vast majority of it, probably 90% of it, on the RE.
One of the most important parts of this video that I made was actually music. It helped dictate the style that I wanted to go for, and if you want to have a selection of music that's instantly awesome, I'd highly recommend looking at Artlist. Last night I just went on a deep dive, and one of my favorite features about their platform is that you can just download music right away. You don't have to go through a series of steps in creating playlists and licensings. You can just download right off the website, which if you are a creative who's in that flow state mode and you've found the playlist of songs that really work for you, you can just start creating them. And so what I do is I download them, and then I have folders on my computer that have all the vibes, and then I just import that into my timeline, and I can start making films faster. Artlist is one of the longest subscriptions that I've had for a music platform. And the reason why is because not only do they license for just YouTube videos, they do it for everything. So if you're working on a commercial, a wedding, something corporate related, or a feature film, you can use music for that. It just feels like they've really dialed in on their staff pick section and their playlists. Like, I feel like I can find songs so much faster now. One of my favorite preferences, so if you're looking for music and you like the stuff in this, I put in cinematic synth ambient. I also went as a cheat code and just went to playlists that they had available. I saw the Fallout one. I was like, this is an awesome soundtrack to start stealing from. And they also just have a full platform of tools and resources for filmmakers. So if you like what you're listening to, go take a look at artlist.io.
The entire film was storyboarded, and I've watched a lot of directors now talk about the storyboarding process, whether it's Zack Snyder, Denis Villeneuve, and probably many in between. But the reason why I like to storyboard is because even though I'm not going on set referencing them the entire time, it was the second stage of writing that I needed before going into the film.
I just want to wear dress. You know, it's gonna wear my black.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Do a little movies. Eat your heart out, Christopher Nolan. They're going to start off camera here.
Oh, and they're
on
walking
action.
in.
They're going to walk in. Charlie's going to come in from that side,
Okay.
and we're going to fill the frame.
So yes, let's give them some rough marks on the ground then.
Cool.
Then you're gonna kind of check out the space, but kind of land with your chest facing towards Charlie.
By playing it cool, but then like when you look at each other, like, yeah, this is the fucking spot. You guys
Charlie,
to pop
even
in.
one step towards them, just because anamorphic always makes people feel so much further apart. Yeah. So
Cool. Let's do that one more time.
Eve. Tris. Fuck.
You almost had it. You're halfway there.
You had a 50-50 shot.
Yeah, it's okay, dude.
We shot this from 4 angles. We had a wide Dana Dolly push in, and then a 2-shot of our 2 characters, a single of our real estate agent who's showing them the space, and then actually 2 singles of our main characters. So 5 shots for one scene that lasts 30 seconds. So if you're planning out your shoot, what I'd recommend is, 1, do a setup that is a really good one to start, but not too hard. So I think like if you're scheduling a shoot, start easy, but just have a very like heavy setup for your easy setup. And that gets everyone to figure out all their pacing.
Kind of land with your chest facing towards Charlie, so that it makes sense as we go in for coverage where we can see both your faces.
Okay.
So start looking that way, but then be like, I love it. And we're looking this way.
Cool.
So I walk in this way, and then I'm gonna come.
And Jackie
Yeah,
and I
that
were
looks cool.
talking.
Sweet.
It's like the two of you kind of do this like look at each other, like, this is the spot.
Enough.
Cool.
So this scene was a great way to start our day. It established our 2 actors. It wasn't anything too intense. Now, to look at the behind the scenes and how this was set up, Nik has this massive negative fill on the one side, big, which when it flipped over, there was white on the other side. So whether we needed bounce or we needed something to absorb the light, it was available. Now, because this was a big space with a bunch of windows, a big negative fill was super important. And then to boost a little bit of the light and to create a little dimension, Nik had this massive light panel just off to the side of the negative fill. So you have the black coming from camera side and then a little extra light coming from behind the characters a bit, so you have some shape and dimension, but that they're not blending in with all of it, that they're shadows making them pop out.
Can we get our even tryst stand here so I can give them, because it'll probably be slightly new marks.
We got a tryst.
Shooting in big warehouses, like I've always wanted to. I always have them in my head and hardly ever shoot in them, but they are so awesome because they have so much texture on the back walls. You can be pretty aggressive in them with camera gear and stands. It's all concrete. It's not like shooting in someone's house. And there's something just really wide and expansive that feels awesome on screen. And we got to capture this on our 28 mil. So that was a 14 mil. And I was just so happy to see how this opening shot felt. It kind of reminded me of something out of a Nolan film.
Like, do you
I feel great with
that you've
that.
established it?
Yeah, I feel good with that. Cool.
Let's do a push in on the we'll take it then?
Yep, cool.
Okay.
So we're just going to do that tail end part.
You'll notice that we're shooting this on the Dana Dolly. Dana Dolly is the go-to replacement for a dolly. I think that if you are a small setup, even if you're a big setup, don't waste your time with dollies. I'll talk more about this later in another video, but we found that shooting with this was the quickest way, not only to get moving shots, but also stationary shots.
Dana Dolly is the quickest way to get cinema quality dolly shots. Without a doubt, smoothest way, sets up in 5 minutes. If you practice on the Dana Dolly, you probably never need a bigger dolly.
Yeah, I've killed so much time on sets trying to have a real dolly, and it's like, which could have been done with a Dana dolly. Because you're just looking for a little move in a shot.
Seen in a movie that's like 40 feet of tracking with a person, there's equally like a 3-foot push-in through a doorway, or like these subtle push-ins on insert shots that don't need 40 feet of track.
A lot of movies, again, are done with tights, mediums, and close-ups. You don't need a long dolly for close-ups because you're going to get so much movement. You're going to get more of a Michael Bay effect. So having a short track and a tighter lens actually does a lot of justice.
So you can set up the camera, find your mark, and let it sit there versus having to constantly move a tripod around or a dolly, which is like leveling and lots of tracks, and then you need a dolly grip and all that stuff. So to simplify, Dana Dolly did the most damage and looked like a dolly in our film. Quick plug to Set Ready Rentals. They gave us all of the gear for our shoot, and we could not have gotten it done without their generous contribution. If you live in the Ontario, Canada area, especially Toronto, I highly recommend taking a look at all of their rentals available. Let's talk about some jobs that I think are unsung heroes on a film. So we have a gaffer, which was Dave, who would move the light or fix anything within the lighting space so that Nik could stay behind camera and direct the photography. And then we had Alice, who was our first AC, who was making sure the shots were sharp and in focus. And I think having those two additional people on this set made it a well-oiled machine. Now, it's not impossible to do a shoot without them, but if you're wanting to take an upgrade to your set and maybe be a little less stressed, those two additional jobs changed it. And then we had Me Too, who was our swing on the shoot, which is the first time I've ever worked with a swing in a film, but he did a great job. He held the slate, grabbed any additional gear, was basically the extra set of hands for the cinematographer, and also worked as a bit of a second AC who does the camera slate and calls the shots. Absolutely would have been an impossible shoot without those three team members.
Okay, now let's just hold in this spot. Beth, you want to come in with some fake blood? Just one. We can just keep rolling on this. So great. So then when you land, like after you turn it down, land back down, and then look at her, and then just hold on that. Beautiful. Cut. That was so good. Cool. Great. Good
All right.
stuff.
And then, Jackie, are you going to be similar to Kat?
So one thing you might wonder is, like, what is it like to work with a cinematographer? And I've always wondered, like, what's the difference between a cinematographer and a director and swing, gaffer, all those people? So there's actually a difference between commercials and narrative when it comes to the cinematographer's role. Cinematographer's role on a commercial is actually more prevalent and a lot more aimed at, like, the director position, where the image relies heavily on their shoulders, so they're actually calling a lot of where the camera's going and directing the image more.
Set.
And action.
When you are directing a narrative, you're kind of looking at a much larger picture. So the director's position as far as the visual language is more prevalent. So I would go into a space and say, Nick, I want to get a close-up of Jackie's eye here. We want to get a wide push-in of the entire space, and I want to get some coverage of them. I would say that, and then he would translate that as, what focal length is that? So what lens? What's the lighting look like? And what's the rig we're shooting it on? And usually how we would shoot it is we go from our wide, so capture our big wide space, and then push in and get in our closer coverage. The lighting that I loved what Nik did and does as a cinematographer, I mean, he does this Mylar, by the way, we'll just take a quick pause. This Mylar setup that we're doing, we have a super tight close-up of Jackie and Katrina, who is our lead in the film. And we would shoot on the 65, and then the haze would pick up the light flickering, and then I would shake the camera to create this trippy shaking effect. And the blend of all of those things made it a very cool, weird shot. And we did this because our production designer was building our main set piece in the background. So a cool thing that you can do with close-ups or additional pickup shots is schedule those or planning those for when something else is happening is really awesome. Wide shots are a pain in the ass because you need everyone to be working on them. But close-ups are a huge time saver because if you don't have the time, resources, or someone's doing something, you can go and grab close-ups and extreme close-ups. And I'll be honest, as an editor and a director, I'm always looking for more detail shots and almost hardly ever have them. I've spent so much time on getting that big wide that I will miss the nice detail shots in the edit. So with this film, we really tried to prioritize the close-ups. When you're directing your film, you're going to want to figure out the edit in your head. So the best way to figure out your coverage is shoot your wide first, so that gets everything figured out. And what I liked about working with Nik is once we shot our wide, he would light the wide for the close-up. So instead of having to do a relight and rejig around some things, we could just push the camera in, and when the camera pushes in, we just push the negative fill in, and the lighting was already pretty damn dialed in. Sometimes you'll have to make some adjustments, but there was never a time I was waiting on lighting, and that's because he would light the wides for the close-ups with just a few tweaks with negative fill in order to enhance the image. Now, I probably simplified it too much, and maybe we can talk to Nik in another video about his process, but overall, it seemed like a very fast thing. You never want anyone waiting on people, and waiting on something is one of the biggest hindrances on set. We don't need more money, we need more time.
Action. Might as well just get the turn on.
Guys, I'm so excited. We have a founders launch for our website, the 4-Week Filmmaker, part of the Cinematic Academy. This is how to make a movie in 4 weeks. And if you liked this video about making Rogue Wave, there is a full, almost 1 hour breakdown of how we made it. We also do interviews with Nik Pilecki, cinematographer, who dives into the cinematography much deeper, as well as talking about all of the stuff on set, explaining how to make a movie from start to finish, from pre-production to post-production, and teaching you all my little formulas on the way to make a successful movie that people want to see. If you ever wanted to make a film by yourself, or maybe just with a friend, or even with a full film crew, this is the foundations and the knowledge that you need to know to elevate and start your filmmaking career. Start that trajectory of perhaps being a feature film director or a television show director or a YouTube filmmaker. Whatever that is, I wanted to give you guys the tools and foundations and a full deep dive on this movie we made, because there is some insane behind the scenes that I'm just so excited for you guys to see. So if you want deeper behind the scenes and an exclusive look at our film Rogue Wave, you can go take a look at it through Cinematic Academy and enroll in the 4-Week Filmmaker now. It's 30% off for our founders launch. It won't be like that forever, so go hop on over.